The familiar scent of hay and freshly tilled earth hit me before I even stepped out of my rental car. 15 years away from home, and nothing had changed, except everything that mattered. I'm Ingrid, and I never thought I'd return to Millbrook under these circumstances. The weathered sign of Morgan Family Farms loomed ahead, its peeling paint a testament to time's steady march. My father's funeral was in 2 hours, and already I could feel the weight of unspoken words pressing down on my chest. Well, look who finally decided to show up. Derek's voice cut through the morning air as I approached the farmhouse. My brother stood on the wraparound porch, arms crossed, looking more like our father than ever. "Hello, Derek." I kept my voice neutral, professional, the same tone I use with difficult clients at my architecture firm. "How's Marley?" "She's inside, making arrangements." He didn't move to help as I struggled with my luggage up the creaky steps. "Funny how it takes Dad dying to bring you back home." I bit back a sharp response. "I came as soon as I heard." 3 days later, I was in Dubai, closing a major project. "You know I would've—" "Save it." Derek turned away, but not before I caught the flash of something in his eyes. "Triumph." "Dad didn't expect you anyway. He knew where your priorities lay." Inside, Marley's warm hug contrasted sharply with Derek's frost. "Oh, Ingrid, I'm so sorry." She pulled back, studying my face. "You look exactly like your mom in that old photo in the study." "Thanks, Marley." I managed a smile, noting how she squeezed my hand when Derek wasn't looking. "How are you holding up?" "Managing. There's coffee in the kitchen if you need some. The service is at 2. I wandered through the house, each room a time capsule of memories. Dad's reading glasses still sat on his favorite armchair, a half-finished crossword puzzle beside them. In the kitchen, his coffee mug remained unwashed in the sink, as if he'd just stepped out for a moment. "He asked about you." Adam's voice startled me. Our family lawyer stood in the doorway, looking older than I remembered. "The day before." "Don't." I turned away, busying myself with the coffee maker. "I should have come sooner, I know that. There's something we need to discuss, Ingrid, about the will." "Not now," Derek interrupted, appearing suddenly. "We handle that after the service, Adam. Family only." Adam's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. "Of course, I'll see you all at the church." The service passed in a blur of familiar faces and sympathetic murmurs. I stood beside Derek as people filed past, sharing memories of our father. Mayor Victoria squeezed my shoulder, whispering, "Your father was so proud of you, dear. All those buildings you've designed." "Thanks," I managed, watching Derek's jaw clench. Afterward, back at the farm, Derek gathered everyone in Dad's study, the same room where he'd taught us to read, where he'd helped with homework, where he'd encouraged my dreams of becoming an architect, while Derek rolled his eyes. "Let's make this quick," Derek said, nodding to Adam. "We all know Dad wanted the farm kept in the family. He made his wishes clear." Adam cleared his throat, shuffling papers. "Yes, well, according to the final version of the will, Derek inherits the farm in its entirety. Ingrid, there's a small monetary bequest." "What?" The word escaped before I could stop it. "That's impossible. Dad always said the farm should go to someone who cared about it." Derek cut in. "Someone who stayed, who worked the land, who didn't run off to play with building blocks in the big city. They're called architectural models, Derek, and that's not—" "Here." Adam handed me a document, his hands trembling slightly. "Everything's in order, legally speaking." I scanned the papers, my architect's eye catching subtle inconsistencies in the formatting. Something wasn't right. Dad's signature looked different. "I need some air." I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against hardwood. "Take all the air you need," Derek called after me. "Just remember to leave your keys before you head back to your precious city life." Outside, the setting sun painted the cornfields gold, just like when Dad used to lift me onto his shoulders to watch the day end. But now shadows crept across the land, our land, and something dark twisted in my gut. My phone buzzed. A text from Selena, my childhood friend. "Heard you're back. Need to talk." Dad's diner, tomorrow morning? I typed back a quick yes and looked up at the farmhouse. Through the window, I could see Derek in Dad's study, already measuring the room with his eyes, probably planning changes. Behind him, Marley caught my gaze and quickly looked away. The will was wrong. I knew it in my bones. And I wasn't leaving until I uncovered the truth. Dad's study smelled of leather and pipe tobacco, even though he'd quit smoking years ago. I waited until Derek and Marley left for the bank before slipping inside, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Come on, Dad," I whispered, running my fingers along the spines of his books. "Where would you hide it?" The morning light filtered through dusty windows, illuminating dancing particles in the air. I'd spent countless hours in this room as a kid, watching Dad work on farm accounts while I sketched building designs on scrap paper. The false bottom in his desk drawer hadn't fooled me then, and it wouldn't fool me now. Bingo! I pressed the hidden catch, just like he'd taught me. Inside lay a bundle of letters, held together with a faded rubber band. The top envelope bore my name in Dad's distinctive handwriting. Ingrid. Marley's voice nearly made me drop the letters. "Sorry, I forgot my— What are you doing?" I spun around, clutching the bundle to my chest. "Marley, She closed the door quietly behind her. "Derek's not with me. What did you find?" I studied her face, remembering how she'd squeezed my hand yesterday. Taking a chance, I held up the letters. "Dad's real will, I hope. Want to help me find out?" She nodded, locking the door. "I've been watching Derek change since your father got sick. The things he's done, I barely recognize him anymore." My hand shook as I opened the first letter. "My dearest Ingrid," I read aloud. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. And things haven't gone as they should. The farm was never meant for just one of you. Your mother and I always intended it to be shared." "Keep reading," Marley urged, perching on the desk's edge. "Derek may think he's entitled to everything because he stayed, but you were always the one who understood my real vision. Remember those drawings you made when you were 12? The ones showing how the farm could become something more." I remembered. I'd sketched plans for sustainable housing that would preserve the farmland while creating a community. Dad had pinned them to his wall for months. "There's more," Marley said, pointing to another envelope. This one contained legal documents. The original will, dated just 6 months ago. As I read, my architect's training kicked in, noting the differences between this and the version Derek had presented. "Look at these signatures," I said, laying both documents side by side. "The spacing, the pressure points, they're different." "Derek made me watch him practice Dad's signature for hours," Marley whispered. "He said it was for some insurance papers. I should have known." "Why are you telling me this?" She stood, pacing the room. "Because your father was right about the farm. Derek just wants to sell it to developers. He's already met with them secretly. But you could make something beautiful here." A memory surfaced, Dad and me, walking the back 40 at sunset. "Someday," he'd said, "this land could be more than just crops. It could be home to dozens of families, all working together, growing their own food, living in harmony with the earth." I said slowly. "But Derek has the legal will now. Even if it's forged, my word against his won't be enough. Then we need proof." Marley's eyes gleamed. "And I know where to find it." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. "Here, Derek's been keeping a journal." I managed to snap a few pages when he was in the shower. He wrote everything down, meeting with the developers, practicing the signature, even bribing Adam to play along. "Adam," I breathed. "No wonder he looked so nervous yesterday." "He's not a bad man," Marley said, "just weak. Derek threatened to expose some old legal mistakes if he didn't cooperate." I sat in Dad's chair, the leather creaking familiarly. "I'm not going to confront Derek, not yet." "What are you thinking?" Dad's vision was bigger than just keeping the farm in the family. He wanted to create something lasting, something that would benefit everyone. I pulled out my tablet, opening a blank design page. "And I'm going to make that happen." "How?" "By giving the town exactly what they need. affordable housing that preserves the agricultural heritage, solar panels, community gardens, shared spaces, everything Dad dreamed of. My fingers flew across the screen, rough shapes taking form. Derek wants to sell to developers? Let's show everyone a better option. Marley leaned over my shoulder, watching the design emerge. The town council would love this, especially with the housing shortage since the mill closed. Exactly. I saved the preliminary sketch. But first, I need to talk to some old friends, starting with Selena. The eco-activist, perfect. Marley checked her watch. Derek will be back soon. I should go. At the door, she paused. Ingrid, I'm sorry about everything. Don't be. You're helping make it right. After she left, I stood at the window, watching the wind ripple through the cornfields. Don't worry, Dad, I whispered. Your dream isn't dead, it's just getting an upgrade. My phone buzzed, Selena confirming our breakfast meeting. Time to set things in motion. The bell above the diner's door chimed as I stepped inside, the aroma of coffee and bacon wrapping around me like a familiar blanket. Selena waved from our old booth, the same one where we'd plotted our futures over countless milkshakes during high school. You look exactly the same, she said, pulling me into a hug. Except for that power suit, very city chic. And you look like you just came from saving the world. I gestured to her Save the Bees t-shirt and mud-stained jeans. Someone has to. She slid a coffee my way. So, spill, what's really going on with the farm? Before I could answer, Adam walked in. His face went pale when he saw me, and he turned to leave. Adam, I called out, join us, please. He hesitated, then shuffled over like a man approaching his own execution. Ingrid, I can explain. Sit. I pushed out a chair with my foot. You look like you could use some coffee. Once he settled, I pulled out the original will and laid it on the table. Adam's hands began to shake. Derek, he has something on you, doesn't he? I kept my voice gentle. How did you? Marley told me everything. I leaned forward. But I need to hear it from you. Adam's shoulders slumped. 10 years ago, I made a mistake. Lost some client money in a bad investment. I covered it up, paid it back slowly. Derek found out. Of course he did, Selena muttered. He always was good at digging up dirt. Remember when we were kids? I asked, stirring my coffee. Derek convinced me to climb the water tower to prove I wasn't scared. Then he told Dad, knowing I'd get in trouble. Yeah, but you didn't, Selena said. You showed your dad those safety issues you spotted up there, and he ended up getting the whole thing renovated. Exactly. I pulled out my tablet. And that's what we're going to do now. Turn Derek's scheme into something better. I showed them my preliminary designs for the eco-community. Adam's legal expertise kicked in immediately. The zoning laws would support this, he said, scrolling through the plans, especially with the agricultural preservation elements. But Derek doesn't know yet. I took back the tablet. And he won't, not until everything's ready. Adam, I need to know, will you help make this right? He straightened in his chair. Tell me what you need. First, documentation, everything about the forged will. Then I need you to quietly research grant opportunities for sustainable community projects. I can help with the environmental impact studies, Selena offered. My organization has been pushing for exactly this kind of development. The diner's door chimed again. Derek walked in, stopping short when he saw us. Well, isn't this cozy? He strode over, eyes fixed on Adam. Having a nice chat? Just catching up, I said smoothly, sliding the original will into my bag. Remember how Dad used to bring us here after church? I remember how you'd always beg for extra whipped cream on your pancakes. Derek's voice softened for a moment, then hardened again. Adam, we have that meeting about the property lines. Right, yes. Adam stood, nodding to me. Good to see you, Ingrid. After they left, Selena grabbed my arm. Property lines, he's already dividing up the land? For the developers. I showed her Marley's photos of Derek's journal. But he's about to learn what Dad always said. Karma comes back around. Speaking of karma, Selena grinned. You know who would love to hear about your project? Terrence, the town historian. Why? Because he has all the original documents about the farm, including some interesting letters from your dad about his vision for the property's future. I felt a spark of hope. Where can we find him? Library. He practically lives there. Selena stood, dropping cash on the table. Come on, it's time to build your case. Outside, the morning sun had burned away the fog, revealing the farm's silhouette on the horizon. The same view that had inspired my first architectural drawings, that had shaped my understanding of how buildings and nature could coexist. You know, Selena said as we walked to her car, Derek might actually thank you for this someday. What do you mean? You're not just saving the farm, you're saving him from himself. She unlocked the doors. Now let's go see Terrence. He loves nothing more than proving people wrong with historical documents. I glanced back at the diner, where Derek and Adam still sat in intense discussion. My brother thought he was so clever, manipulating everyone like chess pieces. But he'd forgotten the most important lesson Dad taught us. The best moves are the ones that help everyone win. Ready? Selena asked. I nodded, sliding into the passenger seat. Time to make some history of our own. The library's ancient oak doors creaked open, releasing a burst of cool, book-scented air. Terrence sat at his usual desk, surrounded by stacks of yellowed documents and local newspapers. Ingrid, he beamed, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. I was wondering when you'd come see me. Hi, Terrence. I gestured to the piles of paper. Looks like you've been expecting us. Your father visited me 3 months ago. He pulled out a thick folder, asked me to document everything about the farm's history, said someone would need it someday. Dad knew, I whispered. He knew Derek would try something. Your father wasn't naive. Terrence spread out several documents. Look here, the original land grant from 1892. The farm was meant to be a community resource from the beginning. Selena leaned in, pointing to a faded map. These markers, they're planning lines for shared gardens. Exactly. Terrence's eyes sparkled. Your great-grandfather designed the farm to support multiple families. The individual plots were meant to be worked cooperatively. I pulled out my tablet, comparing the historical plans to my design. They match perfectly. Dad must have based his vision on these original documents. Speaking of vision, Terrence disappeared into the archives, returning with a dusty box. Your father left this for you. Inside, I found detailed sketches, Dad's handwriting all over them. Community gardens, solar panels, shared spaces. My childhood drawings were paper-clipped to his notes. He kept them, I breathed, all these years. The library door opened, and Mayor Victoria walked in. Terrence, do you have those zoning records? Ingrid, perfect timing. Victoria, look at this. I spread out my updated designs alongside Dad's sketches. The farm was always meant to be more than just one family's property. She studied the plans, her expression growing increasingly interested. This is exactly what the town needs. We've lost so many young families because of the housing crisis, and the environmental impact would be minimal, Selena added. The agricultural heritage would be preserved, even enhanced. The timing couldn't be better, Victoria said. The town council meets next week to discuss development proposals. You should present this. My heart raced. Next week? But I'll need, everything you need is right here. Terrence patted the box. Your father made sure of it. And you'll have help, Selena said. My environmental group can provide support data. Victoria checked her watch. I can give you 15 minutes to present. Make them count. After she left, I dove into the documents, absorbing every detail. Dad's notes revealed years of careful planning, research into sustainable farming practices, even potential funding sources. Terrence, I looked up suddenly. Did Derek ever come to see these? Once, last year. Terrence frowned. He seemed more interested in property values than history. My phone buzzed, a text from Marley. Derek's meeting developers again. They're talking about luxury condos. Hurry. We need to work faster. I showed them the message. Can you help me prepare for the council meeting? Better. Selena grinned. We can start building support now. The farmers market is tomorrow. Perfect place to gauge community interest. And share some historical context, Terrence added, photocopying key documents. People should know what they stand to lose. We worked through the afternoon, refining the presentation, gathering data. As the sun set, casting long shadows through the library windows, Terrence brought out one last document. Your father wrote this the day before he died. He handed me a sealed envelope, said to give it to you when the time was right. Inside was a single page, Dad's handwriting shakier than usual. Ingrid, my brilliant girl. By now you've seen what Derek's done. Don't hate him. Fear makes people do terrible things. Your vision has always been bigger than his. Show them what's possible. Show them what home really means. Love, Dad. You okay? Selena squeezed my shoulder. Yeah. I wiped my eyes, straightening the papers. Just ready to make this happen. As we packed up, Terrence called out, oh, one more thing. Derek's developers? They tried this before, in the next county. The project failed spectacularly. Environmental violations, broken promises to the community. Can you get me those records? He nodded, already copying them. Outside, the evening air was thick with summer heat. The farm's silhouette stood dark against the purple sky, waiting. Tomorrow, at the farmer's market, we'd start spreading the word, start showing people what could be. Want to grab dinner? Selena asked. We can keep planning. Actually, I smiled. I need to make one more stop. Time to talk to someone who might be very interested in preventing those developers from repeating their mistakes. The Environmental Protection Office. Exactly. I got into my car. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's plans. It's about building something better right next to them. The pieces were falling into place, just like in my architectural designs. Derek thought he was playing chess, but he'd forgotten the most important rule of any game. Know your opponent's next move before they make it. The farmer's market buzzed with Saturday morning energy. Marley and I set up our display booth between Mrs. Peterson's honey stand and the organic vegetable stall, spreading out the architectural renderings and historical documents. Derek thinks I'm at my sister's, Marley whispered, arranging flowers around the display. He has no idea I'm here. Perfect. I adjusted the large banner, reading Morgan Farm Community Project, Growing Together. How long until he notices these posters around town? Knowing Derek's tunnel vision when he's focused on a deal could be days. People started gathering around our booth, drawn by the colorful designs and Selena's enthusiastic pitch about sustainable living. I overheard fragments of conversations, affordable housing, community gardens, just what we need. Ingrid, Mrs. Peterson called from her honey stand. Is it true? About the community greenhouses? Come see for yourself. I walked her through the plans. Each resident would have access to growing space. Your beekeeping knowledge would be invaluable. Count me in, she said, eyes sparkling. My grandson's been looking for a place to start his organic farming business. The morning flew by in a whirlwind of explanations and growing support. Even skeptics seemed won over by the combination of environmental consciousness and economic opportunity. Look who's here, Marley muttered, nudging me. Adam approached our booth, looking nervous but determined. Impressive setup, he said, studying the plans. The developers won't like this. No, I agreed, they won't. I brought something. He pulled out a folder. Records of their previous projects. Environmental violations, contract breaches, the works. Thought you might want to add it to your presentation. Adam, I touched his arm. Thank you. Just making things right. He managed a small smile. Derek's not the only one who can gather information. A commotion near the market entrance drew our attention. Victoria was leading a group of council members through the stalls, heading our way. Quick, Marley said, straightening the displays. This is your chance. The presentation went better than I'd hoped. Victoria asked pointed questions about infrastructure and funding, while other council members nodded approvingly at the environmental aspects. We'll need community support, one council member said. Already have it. I gestured to the growing crowd. Look around. Selena appeared with a stack of signed petitions. 200 signatures just this morning. People want this. Very impressive, Victoria said. The council meeting should be interesting. After they left, an elderly man approached the booth. Remember me? I worked with your father for 30 years. Mr. Roberts, I hugged him. Of course I remember. You taught me to drive a tractor. Your daddy showed me these plans years ago. He tapped the renderings, said his daughter would make it happen someday. Guess he was right. The market was winding down when Marley's phone buzzed. Her face went pale. Derek knows, she said. Someone told him about the booth. He's on his way. Good. I started packing up deliberately slowly. Let him come, but trust me. Sure enough, Derek's truck screeched into the parking lot minutes later. He stormed through the market, face thunderous. What the hell is this? He demanded, reaching our booth. Community outreach, I said calmly. People seem quite interested in the farm's future. You have no right. Actually, Adam stepped forward. As a resident of this town and a licensed architect, she has every right to propose development plans. Derek's face reddened. You're trying to undermine my deal. No, Derek. I'm trying to honor Dad's wishes, the real ones. I handed him the original plans. This was his dream. Our great-grandfather's dream, and it's a better deal for everyone, including you. Including me? He scoffed. How? Because instead of being the guy who sold out the family farm to failed developers, you could be part of something that actually helps people. Your neighbors, your community. Failed developers? His expression flickered. Ask Adam about their track record. I gestured to the folder. Or better yet, ask yourself why they're so eager to deal with just you, instead of presenting to the whole town council. Derek picked up one of the renderings, and for a moment I saw a flash of the brother I used to know, the one who helped me build my first treehouse, who taught me to read blueprints. The developers' meeting is on Tuesday, he said finally, before the council vote. I know. He set down the rendering carefully. Make sure your presentation is ready. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Marley let out a breath. Was that good? That was Derek realizing he's backed the wrong horse. I smiled. And giving us a deadline. Tuesday, Selena said. We've got work to do. Looking around at our supporters, Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Roberts, Adam, and dozens of townspeople, I felt Dad's presence stronger than ever. Yes, I agreed. We definitely do. The developers arrived in sleek black SUVs, their polished shoes unsuited for the gravel driveway of the farm. I watched from Dad's study window as Derek greeted them, his shoulders tense despite his forced smile. They're early, Marley said, joining me at the window. Meeting's not for another hour. Of course they are. I checked my phone. Another supportive message from Victoria. They want to pressure Derek before the council session. The lead developer, a man in an expensive suit, gestured emphatically while talking to Derek. Even from here, I could read the aggressive body language. Ingrid. Selena burst through the door, waving a stack of papers. You need to see this, now. She spread the documents across Dad's desk. Environmental surveys, geological reports, and water table analyses. The developer's previous project, she pointed to a highlighted section. They knew about the contamination risks. They built anyway. 3 families got sick. Does Derek know? He will. Marley grabbed the papers. I'm showing him right now. Wait. But she was already heading downstairs. Through the window, I watched Marley approach the group. Derek's face transformed as he read the documents. Confusion, shock, anger. The developer tried to snatch the papers, but Derek pulled them away. My phone buzzed. Adam. Developers just pulled their permits in Riverside County. More violations found, coming with proof. Selena, I turned to her. Get Victoria on the phone. She needs to see this before the council meeting. Raised voices drifted up from outside. I opened the window slightly. You knew, Derek was shouting. You knew about the risks, and you tried to. It's business, the developer snapped. Besides, you're not exactly innocent here, are you? Forged will, fake signatures. I grabbed my tablet and headed downstairs. Time to end this. Actually, I said, stepping onto the porch, let's talk about those signatures. The developer turned, his practiced smile faltering. Ms. Morgan, we weren't expecting. Clearly, I held up my tablet. Just like you weren't expecting anyone to find these. I played the video Marley had secretly recorded of Derek practicing Dad's signature, then switched to photos of the developer's failed projects. Here's what's going to happen, I said, using my best client presentation voice. You're going to get in your fancy cars and leave. You're going to withdraw any pending permits or proposals. And you're going to forget about Morgan Farm. Or what? Or these documents go to every news outlet and environmental agency in the state. I smiled. I hear the EPA loves whistleblowers. The developer's face hardened. Your brother signed contracts. Illegal contracts. Adam's voice rang out as he walked up the driveway, carrying a briefcase. Based on fraudulent representations. Would you like me to continue? The developers huddled together, whispered furiously, then retreated to their vehicles without another word. Derek stood frozen, still holding the damning documents. Ingrid, save it. I held up my hand. The council meeting starts in 45 minutes. You have a choice to make. A choice. Support my proposal, help make Dad's dream real. Or, I gestured to the departing SUVs. Chase after them and see how that works out. He slumped onto the porch steps, looking older suddenly. I really screwed up, didn't I? Yes. I sat beside him. But you can help fix it. How? After everything I did. By remembering who you were before all this. I pulled out Dad's original sketches. Remember when we used to help him plan crop rotations? How excited you got about trying new farming techniques. That was a long time ago. It doesn't have to be. I showed him the community farm sections of my proposal. We need someone who knows this land, who understands agriculture. The residents will need guidance. You'd trust me? After everything? Dad would. I stood up. But first, you need to make things right. Starting with Adam. Derek nodded slowly. The council meeting. What do you need me to do? Tell the truth. All of it. Marley touched his shoulder. I'll be right there with you. As they went inside to prepare, Selena joined me on the porch. Think he'll actually do it? Yes. I watched a hawk circle lazily over the cornfields. Derek's not a bad person. He just lost his way for a while. Speaking of lost, Selena grinned. Victoria just texted. The developer's lawyer called to formally withdraw all proposals. Perfect timing. I gathered my presentation materials. Ready to go change some minds? Born ready. She linked her arm through mine. But you know what the best part is? What's that? You didn't just save the farm. You gave your brother a chance to save himself. We walked to my car, the late afternoon sun turning the farmhouse windows to gold. In less than an hour, everything would change. But for the first time since coming home, I felt certain we were building something Dad would be proud of. Come on, I said. We've got a community to create. The town hall buzzed with nervous energy as people filed in. Every seat was taken, with folks standing along the walls. I spotted Mrs. Peterson and her grandson near the front, Terrence clutching his historical documents, and dozens of faces from the farmer's market. Deep breaths. Selena whispered, adjusting my presentation slides. You've got this. Victoria called the meeting to order, her gavel cutting through the chatter. First item on the agenda, proposed development plans for Morgan Farm. I stood, smoothing my skirt, when Derek's voice rang out. Madam Mayor, if I may speak first? The room went silent. Derek walked to the podium, hands shaking slightly as he gripped its edges. Many of you have known me my whole life, he started. You trusted me, and I betrayed that trust. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Marley squeezed my hand. I forged my father's will. Derek's voice cracked. I tried to steal my sister's inheritance. I dealt with developers who had no interest in our community's welfare. I did all of this because I was afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of losing control. The murmurs grew louder. Victoria leaned forward. Mr. Morgan, are you making a formal statement? Yes. He pulled out a document. This is my written confession and my formal withdrawal of all previous development proposals. Adam stood up. As the family's lawyer, I can confirm the authenticity of both the confession and the original will, which specified joint ownership between Derek and Ingrid Morgan. Furthermore, Derek continued, I want to publicly endorse my sister's proposal. She saw what I couldn't, a way to honor our father's legacy while serving this community's future. He turned to me. Ingrid, show them what's possible. Heart pounding, I took the podium. The presentation screen lit up with my designs. Morgan Farm Community isn't just about houses, I began. It's about connection, sustainable living, making home affordable for young families while preserving our agricultural heritage. I clicked through the slides, showing the solar-powered homes, community gardens, shared greenhouses, and gathering spaces. Each resident will have growing space, I explained. Derek will oversee the agricultural training program, teaching sustainable farming practices. Mrs. Peterson has agreed to lead our pollinator initiative. The elderly beekeeper beamed, nudging her grandson. The environmental impact? Someone called out. Minimal. Selena stepped forward. Our studies show the project will actually improve local biodiversity. We're incorporating native plants, rain gardens, and wildlife corridors. Jobs? Asked another voice. Construction alone will employ local contractors for 2 years, I replied. Long term, we're looking at agricultural positions, maintenance, community management, and small business opportunities in the marketplace area. Victoria studied the budget projections. And the funding. We qualify for green development grants, Adam interjected. Plus, I've had interest from 3 sustainable investment groups. Questions flew for the next hour. I answered each one, watching support grow in people's faces. Even the skeptics seemed won over by the combination of environmental responsibility and economic opportunity. Finally, Victoria called for the vote. All in favor of approving the Morgan Farm Community proposal. Hands shot up across the room. Victoria counted, then smiled. The proposal passes, 14-1. The room erupted in cheers. Mrs. Peterson hugged her grandson. Terrence wiped his eyes with a handkerchief. There's one more thing, Derek said, returning to the podium. He turned to face me. Ingrid, I'm sorry for everything. You were right about Dad's vision. Right about the farm, right about me. Derek, let me finish. I'd like to formally request a position on the project team. Not as an owner, I don't deserve that, but as someone who knows this land and wants to help it grow. Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged my brother for the first time in years. Agricultural director sounds like a good title, don't you think? The celebration spilled out onto the town hall steps. Victoria was already talking about fast-tracking permits. Selena coordinated with her environmental team. Adam discussed grant applications with potential investors. Look, Marley pointed to the horizon. The setting sun painted the farm's silhouette in shades of gold and purple. A perfect summer evening, just like the ones Dad used to love. He'd be proud, Derek said softly. Not just of the project, of you. Of both of us, I corrected. It took both of us to make this happen, even if we had to do it the hard way. Speaking of making things happen, Selena interrupted, waving her tablet. The contractors want to meet tomorrow, ready to start turning those drawings into reality. I looked around at our unlikely team, my reformed brother, his supportive wife, my childhood friend, the determined lawyer, the passionate environmentalist, and a community full of people ready to build something extraordinary. Yes, I said, it's time to break ground. As we walked to our cars, someone started humming, "This land is your land." Others joined in. The impromptu chorus floating up into the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but tonight, standing on the steps of Town Hall, we were already home. The morning dew sparkled on newly laid sod as I walked the winding paths of Morgan Farm Community. Construction crews were already busy, the rhythmic sound of hammers mixing with bird song. The first row of homes stood nearly complete, their solar panels gleaming in the sunrise. Morning boss, Joey, our lead contractor, waved from atop a scaffold, finishing touches on the Peterson place today. Perfect timing. I checked my clipboard. Her grandson's bringing the first bee colonies this afternoon. Derek's truck pulled up, loaded with seedlings. He'd been up since dawn, working with the future residents in the greenhouse. The tomatoes are coming in strong, he called out, jumping down from the cab. Mrs. Peterson's organic farming class is paying off. Look who I found at the entrance, Marley said, walking up with Selena and Adam. They brought the final paperwork. We gathered in the newly completed community center. My favorite design in the project, floor-to-ceiling windows, offered views of the gardens, while salvaged wood from Dad's old barn wrapped the walls in warmth. Everything's approved. Adam spread the documents on a reclaimed oak table. The last permits, the resident contracts, everything. And the environmental impact reports are better than projected, Selena added. The wildlife corridor is already seeing use. A knock at the door interrupted us. Victoria entered with an elderly man I didn't recognize. Hope we're not interrupting, she said. But someone wanted to see this place for himself. The man stepped forward, eyes misting. I was here when your great-grandfather first sketched out his dream for this land. Never thought I'd live to see it happen. Mr. Thompson, Derek straightened. Dad used to talk about you. Your father was a good man. Thompson touched the barn-wood walls. He understood what this land could be, what it should be. More people began arriving. Future residents coming for their weekly planning meeting. Mrs. Peterson bustled in with fresh honey samples. Her grandson followed, carrying architectural plans for the apiary. Before we start, I raised my voice over the happy chatter. I have something to share. I pulled out Dad's old leather journal, the one I'd found hidden in his desk that first day. This morning, I found an entry I hadn't noticed before. The room quieted as I read. Today, I watched Ingrid sketching her vision for the farm's future. Derek thinks she's wasting time, but he doesn't see what I see. She's drawing more than buildings. She's drawing community, hope, the same dream my grandfather had. Sometimes the best gifts we give our children are the problems we leave them to solve together. Derek gripped the table edge. When did he write that? The day before he died. I closed the journal. He knew Derek. He knew we'd figure it out eventually. A commotion outside drew us to the windows. The first moving truck had arrived, backing carefully down the newly paved road. That's the Roberts family, Marley said. Their daughter's due next month. They wanted to be settled in before the baby comes. We watched as neighbors, people who were strangers just months ago, rushed to help unload furniture. Mrs. Peterson appeared with welcome baskets. Someone started up a grill. This is it. Selena squeezed my hand. Your father's dream, made real. Our dream now, I corrected, watching Derek direct the garden volunteers. My brother had found his purpose, teaching others to love the land. The morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows from the old farmhouse across the new buildings. The contrast didn't clash, it flowed, old and new, working together just as Dad had imagined. Ready for the resident meeting? Adam asked, arranging chairs. Actually, I smiled, I think they're doing fine without us. Through the windows, we watched the community in action. Children played on the sustainable playground, while their parents discussed crop rotations. A group toured the solar array as others planted fall vegetables. The Roberts family's moving truck had turned into an impromptu block party. You know what this reminds me of? Derek joined me at the window. Those summer parties Dad used to throw. The whole town would come, and everyone brought food. And no one wanted to leave. I touched the window glass, feeling the warmth of the sun. He's here, Derek. in every nail, every seed, every new friendship being made. I know. He paused. Think he's forgiven me. I think he forgave you before you even made the mistakes. I turned to face the room full of people, our new extended family, ready to go welcome our first official residents. Outside, the morning had blossomed into one of those perfect days that seemed to stretch forever. The kind of day that reminded you why home wasn't just a place. It was a feeling, a community, a shared dream taking root and growing strong. Come on, I said, opening the door. We've got some new neighbors to meet. The sound of laughter and conversation spilled in, carrying with it the promise of everything Dad had seen all those years ago. Not just buildings and gardens, but something far more precious. A place where hope could grow, where community could thrive, and where coming home meant being part of something bigger than yourself.